What if I told you a teenager just walked into court and defended himself against a team of seasoned lawyers? No law degree, no help, just raw courage. What happened next stunned everyone, including the judge. You won't believe how this story ends. That was the first thing Judge Thomas Reed said when he looked up from his bench and saw a teenager standing at the defense table. He wasn't trying to be rude, but the moment truly caught him off guard. In front of him stood a boy, thin, nervous, barely shaving. His blazer was too big, the sleeves nearly hiding his hands. His shoes were scuffed. He didn't have a briefcase like most attorneys, just a stack of handwritten notes, held together with a rubber band. The courtroom was packed that morning. Local press had taken an interest in the case. After all, how often does a high school student get arrested for hacking into a school system and changing grades? Everyone had come expecting to see a defense attorney, maybe someone bold and confident, ready to argue on the boy's behalf. But what they got was the boy himself. The teenager cleared his throat. His voice wavered slightly, but there was determination beneath it. "Good morning, Your Honor," he said. "I'll be representing myself today." A brief silence followed, and then came the laughter. Someone in the audience chuckled loudly. A few jurors exchanged amused glances. The prosecutor, a polished woman with years of courtroom experience, leaned over and whispered something sarcastic to her assistant. Even the bailiff, usually stone-faced, looked like he was holding back a grin. Judge Reed blinked. "You are going to represent yourself?" he asked slowly. "Without an attorney?" The boy nodded. "That's correct, Your Honor." Judge Reed adjusted his glasses and leaned forward. "Son, do you even understand the seriousness of the charges against you? This isn't a school disciplinary hearing. This is a criminal court." The boy didn't move. "I understand, sir. And I've read the charges. I've also reviewed the prosecution's evidence. And I believe I can present a proper defense." Judge Reed raised an eyebrow. His fingers tapped lightly on the bench. There was no legal reason to stop him. People had the right to represent themselves. But this was different. This was a kid, barely 17, walking into the lion's den. Still, something in the boy's voice, something calm and unwavering, made the judge pause. "And your name?" "Noah Bennett." Judge Reed exhaled slowly and sat back in his chair. "All right, Mr. Bennett. If you're serious about this, then you may proceed. But be aware, this court will hold you to the same standards as any licensed attorney. Do you understand?" "I do." The judge signaled to the court clerk to begin. The jurors shifted in their seats. The audience leaned in, half expecting a disaster. But Noah stood tall, if a little awkwardly, and walked to the center of the courtroom. He placed his notes carefully on the table, took one deep breath, and looked straight at the jury. And in that moment, something changed. The boy who had been laughed at, doubted, and dismissed suddenly looked different. He wasn't trembling. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't reading from a script. He was thinking, clearly, calmly, and with purposios. "My name is Noah Bennett," he began. "And I know what you're all thinking. I'm just a kid. What could I possibly say or do to defend myself?" He paused. But the truth isn't always delivered by the loudest voice in the room. Sometimes, it comes from the one no one expects. The room went silent. For the first time since the trial began, the laughter stopped. The smirks faded. Even the judge leaned in. Noah Bennett had entered the courtroom as a joke. But what no one knew, not yet, at least, was that this so-called child had come prepared not just to fight for his freedom, but to turn the entire trial upside down. And in just a few hours, he would do exactly that. Just 2 months earlier, Noah Bennett was just another high school senior. He walked the same crowded hallways, ate lunch with the same 2 friends, and carried the same hopes as many others his age. Quiet, focused, and deeply curious. Noah wasn't the loudest in the room, but his teachers always knew him as someone special. He was top of his class, a natural problem solver, a computer whiz. He didn't just dream of becoming a lawyer someday. He studied law as a hobby. While others played games or scrolled social media, Noah was watching Courtroom, trials on YouTube, and reading case studies from public records. But none of that mattered the day the police showed up at his front door. It happened on a Friday morning. Just as he was getting ready for school, 2 officers arrived with a search warrant. Noah watched in disbelief as they took his laptop, his phone, even a flash drive from his backpack. His mother stood frozen in the kitchen, trying to process what was happening. His younger sister peeked from behind the couch, too afraid to ask. "Noah Bennett, One of the officers said, "You're being placed under arrest for unauthorized access and tampering with a school computer system." He was handcuffed in his own living room. The school claimed that someone had hacked into the grading database and changed multiple student records, including Noah's. According to the administration, the culprit had boosted several grades, lowered a few others, and left behind just enough breadcrumbs to suggest it was an inside job. All signs, they said, pointed to Noah. The evidence looked strong on the surface. IP addresses that matched Noah's home Wi-Fi, login attempts under his school account, a string of suspicious emails allegedly sent from his address, bragging about how easy it was to fool the system, and, most damning of all, his long reputation for being a tech genius. Within hours of his arrest, Noah was suspended. By the end of the week, he was expelled. Friends stopped messaging him. Teachers who once praised him now distanced themselves. Whispers followed him through the neighborhood. He went from model student to criminal suspect overnight. The worst part? No one knew he hadn't done it. He hadn't touched the grading system. He hadn't sent those emails. He hadn't changed a single record. Someone else had used his name, his account, and his reputation, and now he was the one paying for it. When he first met his court-appointed attorney, he had hope. But the man was overworked, uninterested, and clearly treating Noah's case as just another number on his desk. "This won't go to trial," the lawyer told him. "Best take the deal. Plead guilty, show remorse, and maybe you'll avoid detention." But how could Noah plead guilty to something he didn't do? That night, Noah sat at his desk, staring at his seized computer's empty spot. He knew if he didn't take control of his own case, no one else would. He pulled out a yellow notebook, opened a search bar on his sister's tablet, and began building his defense from scratch. It wasn't a rash decision. It was the result of years of study, years of passion for the law, all those courtroom videos, all those late-night readings. Now, it would all be put to the test. His parents were hesitant. His friends thought he'd lost his mind. The prosecutor laughed when she heard he'd chosen to defend himself. But no one knew something they didn't. He wasn't just fighting for his innocence. He was fighting for the truth, and he'd been preparing for this fight his whole life. Not school textbooks. He already had those covered. No, his passion was different. After finishing his homework, Noah would slip away to the quiet corners of the town library, where he dove into thick law books most people wouldn't touch. Titles like criminal procedure, the fundamentals, and evidence law. Essentials were his idea of entertainment. He didn't do this because he had to. He did it because he wanted to. Something about the law fascinated him. The rules, the reasoning, the pursuit of truth. To him, justice wasn't just a concept. It was a responsibility. At night, while the glow of video games lit up his classmates' rooms, Noah watched hours of courtroom trials on public legal channels. He took notes on how real lawyers spoke, how they presented arguments, how they questioned witnesses. He didn't just listen, he studied. He also explored archived court cases, memorizing legal terms and understanding the flow of trials. Noah wasn't enrolled in law school. He didn't even have a mentor. But what he did have was a burning curiosity and a drive most adults couldn't match. He had no formal training, no degree, no one handing him shortcuts. But he had something far more powerful, an obsession with justice, and a mind built for focus. So when he was falsely accused of hacking into his school's computer system, it wasn't just a fight to clear his name. It was a real-life test of everything he'd spent years preparing for. And Noah took that test seriously. Once he decided to represent himself, he transformed his room into a miniature law office. He used sticky notes on the wall like case boards, organizing timelines, IP addresses, and lists of possible witnesses. His notebooks filled with questions he planned to ask in court, each one carefully crafted to reveal the truth. He focused on 3 key areas. 1. Cyber law, to understand what he was being accused of. 2. Digital forensics, to learn how data could be manipulated or planted. 3. Rules of evidence, to know what the prosecution could and couldn't legally present. He read everything he could find on digital footprints, Wi-Fi vulnerabilities, and IP spoofing. He discovered how unsecured school networks could be accessed by anyone nearby. He even taught himself how to read server logs, learning how a single piece of digital evidence could be interpreted or misinterpreted. Noah practiced speaking in front of a mirror, timing his arguments and sharpening his delivery. He rehearsed cross-examinations by imagining how the school's witnesses might respond. He even wrote a closing statement and rewrote it 10 times until it felt right. All while the world assumed he didn't stand a chance. His classmates whispered about him. He's going to embarrass himself, they said. Teachers who once praised him now avoided his family. The media framed the case as an open and shut example of a gifted kid gone rogue. Everyone saw a teenager pretending to be a lawyer. But Noah wasn't pretending. He wasn't just hoping for a lucky break or trying to win sympathy from the jury. He was doing what few adults would dare to do, standing in a courtroom with his future on the line, armed with only knowledge and conviction. And he wasn't there to play a role. He was there to prove the truth. The courtroom didn't know it yet. The judge didn't see it coming. And the prosecution certainly didn't think twice about him. But they were all about to learn something that would change the course of the trial. Noah Bennett wasn't acting like a lawyer. He was one, and he was ready to prove it. The prosecutor, confident and polished, stood before the jury with a stack of evidence in hand. She wasted no time. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," she began, "this is not a case of curiosity gone too far. This is about a deliberate act, an attack on a school's integrity, committed by someone who knew exactly what he was doing." She pointed to Noah, who sat calmly at the defense table. Then came the evidence. First, the school's digital logs, records that showed a user logged into the grading system from Noah's account. Next, the IP address, a match with Noah's home network. Then, screenshots of emails sent from Noah's school account, emails, discussing grade changes and taunting the school administration. The prosecutor walked slowly past the jury box, letting the weight of the evidence sink in. Everything points to the defendant. The access, the timing, the motive. It's all there. The courtroom was silent. Jurors looked down, taking notes. Onlookers exchanged whispers. Even the judge looked convinced. But Noah didn't flinch. When it was his turn, he stood up, buttoned his oversized blazer, and calmly walked to the center of the courtroom. His voice was clear, his delivery measured and confident. "Your Honor, members of the jury," he began, "I know what this looks like, but I'm going to show you what it actually is." He turned to the screen beside the judge and tapped the keyboard. First, he pulled up a diagram of the school's Wi-Fi network. "This network," he said, "has no encryption, no password. It's completely unsecured. Anyone, sitting in the parking lot, or even across the street, could have accessed it." He pointed to the IP address the prosecutor had shown earlier. "This proves nothing. IP addresses can be spoofed, cloned, made to look like they came from one place, when they actually came from another." Next, Noah introduced a piece of evidence no one expected. Security footage, time-stamped video from the school's hallway cameras. It showed him walking with a group of students at the exact moment the grade changes occurred. He wasn't even near a computer. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. The judge leaned forward. The prosecutor looked rattled. Noah wasn't finished. Then came the turning point, the moment that flipped the trial upside down. Noah called a surprise witness to the stand, James Holloway, a fellow senior, known for pulling high-tech pranks on teachers. James hesitated as he took the oath, clearly nervous. Noah approached the witness stand with a quiet intensity. "James, you have access to the computer lab after school, don't you?" James glanced at the prosecutor, then nodded. "Yeah, I'm part of the tech crew. And you know the admin passwords. I mean, we're not supposed to. But you do." James said nothing. Then Noah held up a printed screenshot for the jury to see. It was a group chat message, sent late at night. From James. "Changing grades is easier than I thought. This school's system is a joke." James froze. "I never meant," he started. But Noah cut in, calmly. "Did you send this message?" James swallowed hard. "Yes." The courtroom exploded in whispers. Noah turned to the judge. "Your Honor, I request this be entered into evidence." The judge nodded slowly, visibly stunned. The prosecutor sat down, speechless. Everything was unraveling. The once solid case was now full of cracks. And the kid who was supposed to be in over his head? He was controlling the courtroom like a seasoned pro. Noah Bennett had done more than defend himself. Noah Bennett stood alone at the center of the room, his final words hanging in the air like the closing line of a powerful speech. "I may not wear a suit like the attorneys here," he said, his voice calm but firm. "And I may not have a degree, but I have the truth. And I believe the truth is what this court is supposed to stand for." He looked directly at the jury, 12 strangers who held his future in their hands. Then he sat down, took a deep breath, and waited. The judge nodded. Jury will now deliberate. The members of the jury filed out of the room. Noah's heart was pounding, but he kept his expression steady. He had done everything he could. The evidence, the testimony, the truth. Now it was out of his hands. 20 long, silent minutes passed. Then the door opened. The jury returned. Everyone stood. The judge looked to the jury foreman. Has the jury reached a verdict? The foreman rose, paper in hand. We have, Your Honor. He cleared his throat. In the matter of the state versus Noah Bennett, we find the defendant not guilty. There was a moment of silence. Absolute stillness. And then, the tension snapped. Noah's mother gasped and put her hand over her mouth. His younger sister clapped before realizing it wasn't allowed. The courtroom buzzed with quiet disbelief. But before anyone could say a word, the judge stood up. He looked directly at Noah. His face, once unreadable, now carried something else, respect. Son, he said slowly, when you first walked into this courtroom, I'll admit, I thought you were wasting everyone's time. I thought this was going to be a disaster. He paused. The courtroom waited. But I was wrong. He turned slightly to address the courtroom. Mr. Bennett gave one of the most well-prepared, honest, and intelligent defenses I've seen in years. And he did it without formal training, without help, just with focus, hard work, and a belief in justice. Then, he looked back at Noah. You may not have a law degree, young man, but you've already proven you have what it takes to be a great attorney. There was no laughter this time. No snickering. No smirks. Instead, clapping. One person stood, then another. Soon, the entire room rose in a standing ovation. Noah stood still for a moment, stunned. He had walked into this room as a joke in the eyes of many. Now, they were applauding him. As he stepped out of the courtroom, reporters were already waiting outside. Microphones were shoved toward him. Cameras flashed. Teen wins trial without a lawyer. High school student shocks judge with genius defense. The headlines wrote themselves. But Noah didn't linger. He gave a short statement, thanked the court, and walked away, holding his mother's hand tightly in his own. News of his victory spread quickly. Local stations aired clips of the trial. Law blogs praised his strategy. Some called him the teenage attorney. Others said he had a future on the Supreme Court. But Noah didn't care about fame. He had never done this for attention. He did it because he knew he was innocent, because no one else was going to fight for him the way he needed, and because sometimes, when the system overlooks you, you have to stand up and fight back, no matter how young you are. Noah Bennett didn't just win a court case. He proved something deeper. That brilliance doesn't come with age. That courage doesn't require a title. And that the truth, when spoken clearly and boldly, can silence even the loudest courtroom. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more powerful and thought-provoking stories every week. And don't forget to hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.